Hey, somebody's got to pull up a chair. You have? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to The Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. The Professional Noticer is sponsored this week by WisdomHarbor.com. That's Wisdom, HARBOUR.com. WisdomHarbor.com is an affordable virtual destination for all ages, giving members a unique advantage in a competitive world. WisdomHarbor.com is available now, not only for you, but for family and friends. You will not find a gift less expensive that will be more appreciated all year long than WisdomHarbor.com. Wisdom Harbor produces valuable content delivered by educators, Grammy winners, best-selling authors, coaches, comedians, CEOs, master chefs, and Hall of Fame speakers. There are even guitar lessons given by an award-winning songwriter. Go online now, check out the virtual tour and the inside scoop at WisdomHarbor.com. Observations and answers, that's what we do here on The Professional Noticer. And as you know, we love it when somebody comes to the table with both, and when we can get a deep dive into wisdom, that is just a bonus, and that's what we have today. Her left forearm is tattooed A25893. She's one of the few survivors of Auschwitz. At the age of 14, she was imprisoned in the women's side of the camp known as Auschwitz and Birchenau. At 92 years of age, her memory is needle sharp, and we are honored as she has agreed to join us today. Please welcome Rose Schindler. Hi, Rose.
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much for having me, okay?
I am honored that you would take the time. I read your book this weekend and was just captivated, and I don't know how to describe my reaction to this book, but of all the things that I've read on the Holocaust, and including the Diary of Anne Frank, this one it's in the top two. It's there with Diary of Anne Frank.
Thank you.
So you were born in Czechoslovakia into a family with 6 girls and 2 boys. Your father, yes, Tata, was a tailor, and your mother kept the home and raised the children. In 1938, you're 9 years old when your teacher tells you that the 4th grade will be your last year in school because Jews are no longer allowed to go to school. What did your parents tell you about that situation?
Well, that I do not remember, but me as a kid being in school, it didn't bother me at all, not having to go to school and having to learn stuff, But I don't know if we ever discussed this in those days about schools. We did, but
you were just home.
Just home, right. As long as we're home, then it's okay.
Right. And in September of the next year, your father came home from work with news about his business. What was it?
Well, all the Jewish businesses were taken away.
And so
most of the businesses were owned by Jewish people. We lived in a village. I don't think we had 1,500 people. We had 600 Jewish people in town. And we lived in Serenye, which is right between Munkac and Ungvar. Munkac and Ungvar, they were big cities, like over 100,000 people. But yes, we lived so primitive, you have no idea, thinking about it today. We had no indoor plumbing in the house. We had no electricity. We had unbelievable, okay? Today, I don't know if anybody could live that way anymore. Right. But we lived the way we did, and everything was fine because we didn't know anything better.
And then all of a sudden, one day, your father was kicked out of his own business and everything was taken and he was told not to return.
Right. All the Jewish businesses were taken away. And really, the non-Jewish people mostly were farmers, okay? So I don't know if anybody could have taken over the business. So a lot of most of the businesses in our village were Jewish. So I don't know how they managed without us, but that's what it was.
Right. So they didn't actually keep them going. They just closed them.
No, they did not keep it going. And actually, the men, all the Jewish men who had businesses, they were taken to factories to work. They would pick up all the men early in the morning and bring them back at night. And they did this till the war ended, okay? So they kept the people busy, okay? Because, but we were not allowed to even leave our town or our village. I don't know what you'd call it. So, but as long as we were left in our home and with my mother and all the sisters and brothers, everything was okay. We didn't object to it too much.
And so
we didn't know what was going on in the world. We didn't have a radio. We didn't have any newspapers. We were like prisoners in a village. You know what I mean? If you think about it today. But we never had this, so it wasn't so terrible.
And so in 1941, as time is moving on, you're 11 years old then, and there was a new rule issued about what the Jews must wear.
Yeah, we had to have Jewish stars in our clothes.
And so what would happen if you were caught without that star?
Well, I really don't know if anybody wouldn't follow the rules and regulations, okay?
Because everybody did.
Yeah, I'm sure we did. And if we didn't, yeah.
Throughout the first 3 chapters of your book, and then the name of the book is "TwoWho Survived: Keeping Hope Alive While Surviving the Holocaust." And this is written by you and your husband, Max, who passed away several years ago. But during the first couple of chapters, I was struck by the number of times you referred to parents, aunts, and uncles telling you and each other that you must follow the rules, that you must be patient, and that if you mind your own business, the soldiers will leave you alone. And then there's the Friday night when your father, that you call Tata, informs your family that the rabbi has told the congregation they must comply with all the demands and not to resist, because resistance was not the work of God. Did those instructions confuse you at the time?
Well, remember, I was a young kid, 14 years old. Well, less than 14, actually, then. And I really didn't know anything different. We just had to follow rules and regulations. Whatever my parents told us to do, we did. If we didn't do it, we might be in trouble.
Sure.
And remember, being Jewish, we had 600 Jewish people in town. The rest were all non-Jewish. And so we always had to follow rules and regulations. We did not want to cause any problems.
Right. And slowly these people, the non-Jewish people in town, began to treat you badly. And
They did. Even though most of them make livings from the Jewish people. You know that? Because they worked for the Jewish people in their stores, in their homes, everywhere. Most of the people there were farmers.
So word comes that all the Jews are being shipped out by train. And you're told to gather, and you're taken to a huge train station, and your entire family is together at that point. As you remained in the station for 3 or 4 weeks, you watched many trains leave, and they're all completely filled with Jews. And in your book, you write, as each train leaves, I wonder where it is going and hope it is somewhere wonderful. Rose, tell me about the train.
It was a regular train. It was in Uzhhorod. we had no trains in Serenya, in my town. So they brought us to Uzhhorod, which was a big city. They had about 100,000 people there or more. And we had no idea what was going on. We just followed rules and did whatever we were told to do. We never imagined what's ahead of us, okay? Who would ever think they're killing so many people every day? The gas chambers were going strong, and people, it was unbelievable for us to even believe what was going on.
Had you heard rumors about it before you left?
We did not hear too many rumors because we didn't know what was going on. We never had a newspaper in our town. And when the war broke out, we were not allowed to leave our town, okay? So we didn't know no newspapers, no radios, no information whatsoever.
They confiscated the radios, correct?
We didn't, if we had 2 or 3 radios in the whole town, that was a lot. We're talking about so many years ago, okay?
Right.
A couple of Jewish people had radios, but when this started, they hid them. But eventually they found them, and they probably punished the people who said they didn't have anything. Okay. But we really didn't know what was going on in the world.
So what was it like on the train?
On the train, it wasn't a regular train. It was like no seats in the train. It was not for passengers. The train was mostly for shipping wood and shipping this and shipping that, not for passengers. Cattle cars, call them cattle cars. They must have put in every cattle car, who knows, maybe 50 people or more. I have no idea. But we were squeezed together like herrings. And there was no bathroom in the train, by the way, or anything like that.
And you were packed so tightly. It says in the book, you mentioned you were like pickles in a jar, that you had to stand up.
We couldn't move around, right. They must have put in so many people. I really never counted them. And in the meantime, the train was going for quite a while, okay, till we got to Auschwitz. But people passed out, people died. And it did not stop once, not even, it took 2.5 days to go from Uzhhorod, which was a big city, that's where we were at the train station, to go to Poland, to the camp, okay? It took 2.5 days. So and there was no bathroom, no nothing. Not that we had bathrooms even at home. We had no bathrooms. So unbelievable to even explain how the situation was.
And so the train didn't stop until it was in Auschwitz.
Right. Not that I remember. Maybe it's possible it stopped, but I don't remember that. Okay? As far as I remember, the train, it took 2.5 days to go from Ungvar to Auschwitz, Poland.
And at Auschwitz, you describe in the book how a man in a uniform climbed on the train to give instructions, and he sees you and quietly asks how old you are. And when you tell him you're 14, he whispers to say that you were 18. What happened at that point?
That was when the train came into Poland, to the camp. The train stopped, and, all the work was done by our own people. They had no choice. Everything was done, even killing their own people, and there was nothing they could do about it. So the man came, because we all came with a lot of luggage. We didn't know where we were going, how long we were going to be gone. So we all had luggage. So the man came on the train to help us. And he came to me, he said to me, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 14. He says, "Tell him you're 18. And he was one of our own people who was working. As I said, all the work was done by our own people. But we had no choice. So I told him I was 14. He says, "Tell him you're 18. And he tried to do this with other kids in the train to survive, okay? So that's how I survived, by telling him I'm 18. Instead of, when we got off the train, they lined up 5 in a row, and finally we stopped, and they were separating us. The mothers and children in one line, in one place, fathers and sons who were capable of working in another line, and all the other children and mothers in another line all went to Auschwitz to the gas chamber.
So as I understood it, you and your sisters, you and your two sisters, your older sisters,
Yes.
were sent in the line to the left, and your father and your 16-year-old brother official on the line to the right, and your mother, your Aunt Leah, and your three younger sisters and baby brother are directed into another line straight ahead.
Right. That's how it was. They separated us. All of us were separated. We had no idea what was ahead. We just followed the rules and regulations. Never saw my mother and three sisters and brother again, or my aunt. And my father, actually, we saw the next day. Because after we were in the camp, in the barrack, we were in a barrack, we had 1,000 women in those barracks. So once we got there, we went to bed because it was late at night. We got up in the morning. We had coffee for breakfast. There's a pot of coffee, black coffee, and they give it, say, to 10 people to have a sip, and that was our breakfast. But then I tried it once and never tried it again, that coffee. But anyway, so I went outside of the barrack. I told my sisters, I want to see where we are, what's going on. And I'm walking and I see these electric fences. I need 2 electric fences near the side of our camp. There was a gypsy camp, a Hungarian camp, and a Czech camp. We were part of the Hungarian camp, okay? And we had 10 to 12-foot electric fences. And you could see people holding women or whoever from the other side, maybe they were men, holding on those fences, and they were dead because nobody realized those fences were electric. When you touch them, 20 seconds later, you're gone. Blood comes out of the nose, and that's it. So it is so horrible to even explain how it was.
Now let me take you back to when they separated you, and you and your sister, you and your 2 sisters went to the left. What happened next?
Well, they put me into the different line, okay? But we were okay. So before we went to get selected to a factory, we stayed about 4 or 5 days. Because there were 1,000 women in every barrack. So when they come and they need 200 or 300 women, you're not forced to go out to get selected. So we didn't go out for quite a few days, maybe 5 days or 6 days. But then you get some advice from some of the people that are there, okay? They tell you what to do. So my sisters were picked to go to this line, and they picked to go to another line. And we knew already what the other line was because we were told what's going on. So, of course, if you're smart enough, you don't stay in the line. You make sure nobody sees you. You get out of that place, okay? And my 2 sisters, they were in line 5 in a row. The next line next to my 2 older sisters, they told the 4 ladies in the second line, there's an open place. My sister is going to come and be into that line. And this is how I got out of Auschwitz, by getting into a line without being allowed to go. You have to be careful what you do, okay? And
when you first arrived, your mom had you wear 3 sets of clothes because you didn't know where you were going.
Right.
You didn't know how cold it was going to be.
Right.
And then they took you off the train, and they made you take your clothes off.
Right. When we got to Auschwitz, okay, we got out of the train because they separated the women, the men, the children, and the mothers, 3 different lines, okay? So when we got into the train, into the building, they told us to take our clothes off and put it in one line. And then they told us to pick up a dress from another line. Okay.
Your hair. Wow.
Yeah. When they shaved all. By the way, when we got there, they put us in a big room and they shaved all our hair, top and bottom, everywhere. Okay. So.
And
anyway.
so they, and it was. This is just horrifying, but
yes,
after you were stripped naked and shaved, you're lined up to be counted, and you see. I was reading this that you and your sister see smoke and flames across the open area that are spewing this foul stench into the air,
mm-hmm.
and somehow you can taste the fire in your mouth, and you hear screams. And when you ask a guard what it is, he tells you they're burning hair. And your sister replied that burning hair would not make such noise. What does the guard say to that?
I really don't remember. I don't remember.
In the book, you said that the guard said they were burning cripples.
Yeah, you're right. That's right. Remember, I'm 92 right now, so sometimes I don't remember everything.
Well, I tell you what, there's some of these things that I feel horrified even bringing up for you to remember.
How can you not remember? There's something like that is your whole life. I mean, some of the things were so horrible you couldn't even think about it. How the world allowed this to happen. And the whole world was silent while this was going on. Okay? Nobody tried to help us.
So in the camps, and as you got into line with your sisters, you know, people are assigned jobs. And so the Jewish people are even assigned to work the crematorium.
Absolutely.
What happens if somebody refuses a job?
They would put you into the gas chamber. They shoot you on the spot. Okay? All the work was done by our own people. They could see their own people going to gas chambers and there was nothing they could do. Maybe some of the men didn't know exactly what's in that big building. Maybe I don't know.
Rose, why would you sometimes hear screaming from the crematorium?
Well, you could hear all kinds of horrible things, okay? The building, I don't know if I ever heard them screaming from the building, okay? I really don't remember that. I tell you, being 92, I forget a lot of things.
All right.
And I do not like to make up stories. So I don't remember hearing screaming. I could have heard it. It's possible.
Yeah, you did.
Rose, what did they feed you?
What they fed us? Well, as I said, coffee in the morning, a pot for 10 or 12 people, black soot. It tasted like black soot, okay? That was our breakfast. And lunchtime, we would get a slice of bread with a piece of margarine on it. And dinner time, we would get soup, okay? The soup was not,
and rice.
It was not edible. Let's put it that way, okay? It was horrible. And the place I was in, that we were in at that time, it was a place where you come and you go. You don't stay long enough. It was a traditional? No.
Transitional.
Transitional, okay? Yeah. All the people, this camp held 1,000, there were 30 barracks in this camp. Every barrack had 1,000 women. One barrack was a kitchen, one barrack was a bathroom, okay? And so this was, nobody stays there. It's you come and you leave.
Or you get murdered.
All the people are sending to factories. The only reason they saved us is to go to factories to work. Other people are sent into the gas chambers, okay?
And you got into line with your sisters to
Right.
get to a factory.
Right. It took me quite a long
You said
time.
in the book that the soup, that you never wanted to be toward the end of the line with the soup because there was sand in it.
Sand in the soup. Oh, in the soup. I don't know what that question is. Sand in the soup?
Yeah, I was asking about the place in the book where you were describing the soup, and you were saying that you didn't want to be toward the end of the line because at the bottom of it there was sand in it.
Oh, right. I tell you, maybe I should read the book again.
Rose, what did the camp smell like? How do you describe that?
All we could smell was the fire.
Burning flesh.
They were burning people every day, killing and burning people all the time. Okay? It was a smell. You couldn't help it. And after you're there a few days, you know what's going on. And we found out what was going on, okay? Killing all these people.
And there were selections 3 or 4 times every week.
Yes.
How did you and your sisters avoid the selections for so long?
There's 1,000 women in every barrack. They come for 200 or 300 or whatever. So you're not forced to go out to get selected, okay? So while we were in Auschwitz, originally in the beginning, we would go to try to get selected, but each time they would put me in the gas chamber line. So we stopped going in for selection because there's 1,000 women there, okay? So that's how we survived, by not going for selection, because my sisters knew I'm not going to be taken. So we were hoping that the war would end. That's how we survived, hoping the war would end and we were going to be free. Remember, this is 1944. We were the last Jews in Europe to be taken to the camps. The Czech and Hungarian Jews. All the others they started in 1939 taking people to camps. Okay, so
I said a few minutes ago that I hate to even bring up some of this stuff, but I think it's important that the world know about this. And one of the things that was particularly disturbing in the book from a personal level is you were there at Auschwitz II Birkenau, and you were the subject of a medical experiment. What did they do to you, to your teeth?
Oh, that was when we were in the camp, but that's after we were selected to go to the camp, to the factory. Well, they put cement into my teeth. I had toothaches, and I didn't.
They drilled your teeth out?
Right. They didn't drill the teeth out.
Yes, they must have.
They must have done. All I know is after the war, we found out there was cement in our teeth, in a lot of my teeth. And most of my teeth came out within probably 5 years after the war. My upper mouth was all ruined because they used cement to fill the teeth. We were, I guess, experimenting.
Right.
All kinds of experiments went over there.
Tell me about your liberation, Rose. What was that like? What was that? It seems surreal in the book.
Yeah. Well, we were in Auschwitz for 4 months, okay? Auschwitz-Birkenau. And that place you come and you leave. Nobody stays that long, okay? The only people that stayed there are the ones that were not selected to go to work. And as I said, there's 1,000 women in every barrack. So you're not forced to go to get selected. Okay? So after being in this Auschwitz-Birkenau barrack number 26 for maybe 2 months, because we stopped going through lines to go get a job, to go to work in factories, because my sisters were afraid that they're not going to let me go with that group. So we stayed behind. We didn't go to get selected. But finally, after being there 2 months, we found out that we had 2 cousins in another barrack who were in charge of giving out food. as I said, there's 1,000 in every barrack. There are 30 barracks, so you can imagine how many people there were there. So we went to the other barrack, and of course, when the cousins saw us, they were so happy to see us, they didn't realize we were there. There are 30 barracks, you know. So anyway, so of course, when we got there, they helped us with a little extra food, an extra slice of bread or whatever, because they were in charge of the barrack. But then after a while, after being there 3-4 weeks, of course, my cousins were selected to go to a factory to work. So we stayed behind. So we did not get any more of this extra foods. So things were back to the normal like before. But anyway, finally, they came to our barrack again, and they needed 300 women to go to Freudenthal in Germany to a factory where they were making masks, and suits and guns. So they needed 300 women. So I said to myself, and by then, being in this new barrack, in the second barrack, I probably may have put on a couple of pounds because I had extra food from my cousins who were in charge of giving out the food, okay? So they came to the barrack and they needed 300 women to go to Freudenthal in Germany. I said to my sisters, you go out, get selected, and I'll see how I get myself. I stole myself into that transport, okay? That's how I got in there. And so we worked in this place for about, I would say, 7 or 8 months. And then we were liberated, okay? We were liberated by the Russians. And I worked on the gas masks. I had to sit in a high chair, pick up a gas mask, put it on my face and look at it and put it down. 10, 12 hours every day. And my 2 sisters worked in different, in the same area, but one worked on uniforms and one worked on guns. So, and they were treating us a lot better than Auschwitz. You cannot even compare Auschwitz. Auschwitz was like a hell place, okay? There's no other name for it. But there we worked 10 hours, 12 hours a day. They served us 3 meals, and we had bunk beds. We slept properly. The second camp was really amazing, okay? Because they wanted our work, and that was in Germany somewhere. Either Germany, the place was called Freudenthal, okay? Anyway, so we were liberated, of course, in 1948, and
tell them about liberation. Tell them the story.
About what?
How did the liberation happen?
Liberations. Okay, so we were 300 women in this. We had 2 buildings, okay? And, every day people, the soldiers would come pick us up and take us to the factories and then bring us back. But this was already 1948 in May, and nobody's coming to pick us up to go to the factory to work. So I said to my sister, something is wrong because nobody's coming. So I said, I'm going to go out and see what's going on. And my sister said, you're not supposed to leave the building. You're always supposed to go when they come for us. I said, I'm going out anyway. And usually they had the doors always locked. But this time, the night before, which was probably 2 or 3 days before liberation, they didn't lock it. The Germans maybe had an idea you don't need to lock it. So I said, I'm going out. So I go out and the door is unlocked, and I go and we had electric fences surrounding our place, okay? And the gate was wide open. I said, what's going on? And then I see planes going all over us and all kinds of noises and stuff like that. And behind the buildings where we lived, they had a lot of, they were growing a lot of corn, okay? So, anyway, so the gate is open, and I said, what's going on? And then planes are going all over us. And I was walking into the fields because I could hear the Russian language and I could understand some of it, okay? So I knew what's going on because I was, as I said, I understood Russian. So I walked into all these Russian, between the cornfields. Excuse me, I have to take a drink. So I walked into the group of the Russian soldiers coming. They liberated us. they were really good to us. They brought us food, whatever we needed. The Russians were very good to us. But they were all coming to the cornfields, the Russians. Of course, the planes were over us also. It was, I think it was May 6th or 7th, 1948.
1945.
Oh, 1945, excuse me. Tell you, being 92, you forget a lot of things. Okay.
You just mix it up. You don't forget it.
Oh, right. But anyway, it was the best day in our lives when we were liberated. Okay.
So when you got out, you found that your family of 150 or so family members were reduced to 11 survivors.
Right.
And you later found out what happened to your immediate family. Can you tell me?
Well, we found out that they were all put into the gas chamber. I mean, all the parents and children and seniors and old people and the sick people, they all ran into the gas chamber, okay? So we knew what was going on after a while. There was nothing we could do. We were 8 children, 3 of us survived. My 2 older sisters and I had a brother who was older also. He was working in a factory and he was doing very well. And a few days before the war ended, when the Russians were coming to liberate the camps, the Germans killed a lot of people. They would take the whole camps into the forest, make them dig a big hole and kill them all. So how I found out about my brother was that this young man who came back to my village after we came home, he was in the camp with my brother, okay? And he said that my brother, he was too sick to leave the barrack, the bunk bed. He couldn't get out of the bunk bed. He was so sick. This was the end of the war. So even though they said all the people to go out, they took out, I don't know how, 200-300 men. And the ones that couldn't get out of their bunk bed stayed, okay? And they took them out and not far from the camp, they made the men dig a big hole and kill everybody. So my brother was one of them. So we knew my brother was gone. So nothing we can do. And we also
that was days before the liberation.
Right, a couple of days before liberation. So the ones that were very sick, they couldn't get out of the bunk, they stayed, okay? Maybe some of the Germans would shoot them, but they did not at this camp. But the others, the healthy ones, they were working in a very nice factory and treated properly, but still, at the end of the war, they took the whole group out into the forest, which was not far from there, and made them dig a big hole, and they killed everybody. That's how this one person that came back from the war who survived. So, who knows?
Yeah, the book, TwoWho Survived, I love the way it was written because it's written with your story,
simple,
and then your husband Max's story,
right,
and then yours, and then Max's, and your husband Max passed away in January 2017, but he had a similar experience to you. He was in exile, sometimes on the run in the mountains, avoiding the Nazis. Then he spent over 1,000 days and nights in forced labor and concentration camps. He was 13, 14, and 15 during this time. And his story is also told in this amazing book. You were married for 66 years. How did you and Max meet after the war, Rose?
After the war, okay, we went home, okay? And after we found out that our whole families were killed, we had nothing left. Our homes were destroyed, by the way. Or if you had very nice homes, then a lot of other people took over our homes, okay? The Jewish homes. And so we decided after we went home and there was nothing for us, and we found out that my father, somebody was with my father in a camp, and he was also sent into he got sick and he was killed. My brother we knew what happened to him. And then we found out what happened to my mother and 3 sisters and brothers also. Because that's what they did. They killed all the mothers as children. Anyway, so we left. And when we came home, our house was not available. It was not in good shape at all. So there was nothing for us to stay in my village. So maybe 20 of us came back while I was there in my village. But some of the people got their homes back, okay? So we stayed with them. And anyway, after a while, we decided to go back to Prague because we had nothing there. So we went back to Prague. My sister went there before, okay? And so after being in Prague a little while, we found out that they're taking children to England into hostels. So my sister signed me up to go to this hostel. So I ended up in Scotland. We were all survivors, okay?
Orphans.
Yes, and we were all orphans. None of us had families anymore. We were being taken care of, okay? So we were living in Scotland for about 9 months, okay? And little by little, a lot of the boys and girls, they found out they had relatives in America and Israel and Australia, New Zealand, wherever. Little by little, a lot of people, young kids were leaving. So finally, the hostel was emptying out. So then we went to another hostel. There was about 10 of us left or so, from about 35, 40 kids in that hostel, because it was emptying out. So they sent us to a camp in Bedford, not far from London, the hostel. And they were mostly all boys, mostly Polish and German boys. And when we got there, it was a big building. We had a good time and everything. But anyway, the first day when they introduced us to the boys, I saw this young man. I said, that man is for me. It was just in my head. This is what I want. Good-looking young man. He was born in Germany, Jewish German. Anyway, so of course, the hostels in England, the girls from the towns would come. They liked the boys. So he already had a girlfriend from the town. So I figured, well, I have time. I was 16 and a half or so. It will happen. And after being in the hostel for about a year and a half, we started speaking the language. We started working. And then eventually the hostel was emptying out because we found relatives all over the world, okay? So we ended up going to London, okay? And Max was also part of the group. So we ended up in London. And when we ended up in London, we started dating. What they would do is find homes where they would pay for our upkeep, okay? So I lived in a home where there was a Jewish family, and they would take care of me and feed me and make sure that everything is okay. And my husband was not maybe 5-6 blocks away in another home. And he was in a non-Jewish family home. But they also were taking good care of him because the government they were paying money for them, for taking care of us. They didn't have enough hostels. So anyway, after being in London maybe 2-3 weeks, Max and I started dating. I finally got him. When you want something, you go after it, okay? Never give up. And if anybody, young kids here are listening to me, if you want something, go after it and don't give up hope. Of course, Max and I started dating. Within 6 months or 9 months, we got engaged. And we were the first couple to get married in England.
Of the survivors. From
the survivors.
Wow.
So we were living in London, and we got married in 1950, Max and I. And of course, we invited everybody to the wedding. And we were also, at this time, we were all working and living in apartments. We were kind of like independent already. And so we got married in 1950. And then Max's family offered us papers to come to the United States. And I said, this is what we want to do, go to America. Even though I had relatives in America, by the way. My mother's brother, he lived in McKeesport. And we did get in touch with them, but they said they cannot help me. He's got his own kids. So when we came to the United States, and then of course Max, his family brought us to America. Okay, they sent us papers, and we came to the United States in 1951. Lived in New York for 5 years. Okay, never met my uncle who lived in McKeesport. So, Max, of course, had relatives also, and we had relatives in New York. And so we got married in 1950. We were the first couple, I think, to get married from the survivors from London.
And then after New York, you moved to San Diego, and that's where you are now.
Right. We lived in New York for 5 years. Okay. And then, of course, survivors were all over the country because all the boys had to report to the military. So we had friends in San Diego who were in the military. So Max said, I'm going to go to San Diego for a weekend, which was a Christmas weekend in 1956.
Yeah.
Not 55, Christmas time, 1955. Came to San Diego. He says, I'm going because one of his best friends was in the military here. And when he came here, 2 days later, he called Mrs. Rose, we're moving to San Diego. My husband learned the IBM business in New York. So he was working for IBM someplace in New York. And then he came to San Diego, he got a better pay, and he liked it so much. He says, this is a place for us. So I came out 3 months later because we already had a daughter in New York. Okay.
Right, you had Roxanne, right?
Right. We had the daughter, Roxanne. And of course, then I worked in the garment industry in New York. And anyway, so we came back in April of 3 months later, and lived in North Park for 6 months, and then we moved to Allied Gardens. And after that, we had 3 more boys. So we have 4 kids, 9 grandkids, and 1 great-grandson we have now.
So Jeffrey, Ben, Roxanne, and Steve.
And I tell you, we are so thankful to this country for giving us a chance to live here. It's the best country in the world, okay?
I think it's ironic, Rose, that your son Steve was 13 and in middle school,
right,
and was cast as Peter in the play The Diary of Anne Frank.
Right.
And you never talked about any of your experiences until then. How did that happen?
We did not want to talk about our experiences, especially when they're so young. So Steve came home and told us what happened, okay? And the teacher wants me to go and speak over there. And that's when I started speaking. Steve is going to be 63 in a couple of months. So you can imagine how long I've been speaking at schools.
Wow.
Yeah,
Rose, last question. What do we do as a society today to keep this from happening again? And do you ever sense signs that it might?
I think there's plenty of signs that it might, but we have to be very careful. Remember, this is the best country in the world, and everybody has the opportunity to do whatever they want, okay? So I don't know how it's in other countries, but America is the best place in the world. And I'm very thankful that we were allowed to come here and live here and raise a family. There's 4 children, 9 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild and 1 on the way. So as I said, whoever is listening to me, be thankful that you live over here, because there's no other place like it.
Rose, thank you so much for taking your time today. This was very important.
So many people have no idea what happened during the Second World War. But there's a lot of books out and histories and
I think as many books as there are, I think that it is very important that we heard this today from you, right?
You.
From your memories, from from you. And I really want to urge people to get this book, TwoWho Survived. You can get this book wherever books are sold.
Right.
It's by Rose and Max Schindler. It's TwoWho Survived, Keeping Hope Alive While Surviving the Holocaust. Rose, for any children who might be watching this, do you mind showing us your tattoo?
Of course, I don't mind at all. There it is. It's A25893. And this was given to me in Auschwitz before we left.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you very much.
I'm thankful to you for having me talk to you. And if anybody has any questions, they can call you or they can call me.
Well, we're going to put on the show notes, we will put how to get the book. We're going to put the Facebook for the page for the book and how to get in touch. And so thank you so much. And thank your son, Ben, for making this happen too. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Stay healthy, okay?
You too.
This has been great. I hope we get to meet in person someday.
Yeah, if you come to San Diego, we'd love to meet you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
What state are you from anyway?
We are from Alabama, which some people call that the state of confusion, but we're from Alabama. We're not too close to you, but we get out there occasionally.
Yeah. Well, if anybody does, I'd be happy to meet them. They could come to visit.
Be our pleasure.
Yes, and I hope they enjoy the book. It's not an enjoyable book, but it's all history, exactly what happened to us. Okay.
This is an important book, and so I'm going to continue to promote this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy.
Thank you.
We're very grateful.
That picture in the book is when I was 18 years old, when Max and I were engaged.
Wow, you were almost as beautiful at 18 as you are now.
Oh, thank you so much.
Very gracious.
Okay, so remember, if you come to San Diego, call us.
We will. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Stay healthy.
Goodbye. Thank you.
I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing the tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Lemper. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. The Professional Noticer would like to dedicate this conversation to the memory of those who have lost their lives to injustice of any kind, and to those survivors who, like Rose Schindler, have chosen to use their experiences to carve a better world for the rest of us.